Hello and welcome everybody to our Coproduce Care Uncut live streams. And today I'm really excited to do this live stream about unions and social care. I've wanted to do this for a long time, and we've just been waiting for the right time when there's so much going on to really think about what can unions do to support the sector, and also what can unions do to support individual people working in social care. We have touched on it before, but not in a huge depth. So today is a fantastic day because we'll be able to talk to a couple of really interesting people from two unions. So we've got Matt Tipper from Unite Southwest Coordinating Officer, and also Kelly Andrews from GMB Trade Union West and Southwest. So really encourage you to get your questions in about what you want to know about unions. Maybe unionization and what unions can do is a totally new concept to you. Maybe you think actually having to pay for it is too much. Maybe you think, well, I'm a provider and actually I don't really want to get involved with that, or I'm a manager and I've had to deal with unions in disputes between my employees, and I'm not too sure whether it's something that I want to even get involved with. Well, we want to either debunk those myths or answer your questions around it. I know a lot of you are listening back to this, but there's no reason why you can't still put your comments in the chat and still share this live stream. And if you're watching live, then do exactly that. If you're on Facebook, then like and share. And if you are on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, because we've got quite a few more live streams coming up in the future. And of course, if you go onto our YouTube channel, you can watch back to quite a lot as well. And just a reminder of some of the things that you can look back on. So we had a debunking the myths around lessons learned in social care over the pandemic session a couple of weeks ago, and that was looking at the evidence that the then Health and Social Care Secretary of State gave, Matt Hancock. Really interesting live stream there, and I definitely encourage you to go back and watch that. And of course, we had a vaccine Q&A around our report that we did on vaccination within the care sector, and of course now coming up that's going to be mandatory. So we discussed some of our findings in a live stream there, so that's something you can also watch. But also in February we did a Q&A about vaccination, so people were just asking about the risks, about the benefits, and especially people who are particularly hesitant. That has been really useful. We've had over 2,500 views on that one, so I definitely encourage you to go and check out what we've done before and see if there's something for you. I'm sure there will be. So go and support. But for today, we're going to concentrate on unions. And before I bring in my guests, I'm just going to play a clip from American politician Bernie Sanders. You may have heard of him. And he's just talking a little bit about unions. It's a few seconds clip. And then I'm going to introduce our guests. So here we go.
What a union is an understanding that when people come together, they have more power. That if you are dealing with your employer and you're getting low wages and you go up to your boss and say, hey, could you give me some more money? The guy says, hey, you know what? I got 10 other people who want your job. But if you walk in with a union and you sit down and you have collective bargaining and you have the power to strike, for example, then your owners have got to listen to you. They have to listen to your demands. So that's historically what unions have been about. Now,
so he said the S word, strike. Now, I know a lot of people hearing that will think the care sector striking. We do not want that. Switch off, turn off, run away. But actually, it's not just about that. So let's dig into all the issues and introduce our guests. So hello both.
Hi.
Really, thank you so much for coming on to the live stream today. And you're both from two different unions, and of course the whole idea of unionization and collective action is sort of the same thing to both of you. It might be different, I don't know, we'll find out. But I'm going to just spend the first couple of minutes just going to you individually to find out a bit about yourselves, how you got into being a union rep, why you got into being a union rep, and then maybe you can talk about your organizations. So I'm going to go to Kelly first, and then I'll come to you, Matt. So welcome, Kelly.
Yeah, thanks. And good evening. So my name's Kelly Andrews. I'm the National Social Care Lead for GMB Union. And I've been representing the sector of social care for the last 20 years. So prior to becoming a GMB officer, I worked for a company which many people will still remember called Southern Cross Healthcare. And I was a care worker. I worked as a senior care with the company. And at the time, it was 1999, I believe it was. Just going back a little bit, the GMB actually became the recognised union for Southern Cross. And I was working in the care home. And one of the GMB officers came to the home to recruit and organise within the home that I was working. And my work colleagues actually put me forward and said, she'll be the rep. She'll be the good rep. She's always the one that's got something to say. She's always the one that will stand up for people. And pretty much that was it. I became the GMB representative, workplace rep at the time, and went through a number of different training courses, different sessions and different experiences. And I became, like I say, the workplace union rep, and I would sit on national negotiations with the company, putting the voice of the workers to the company and explaining actually what the workforce, their reality in the homes, because quite often CEOs and directors have a very limited view of what the reality is actually at the home. So it was really important that the workforce reps were able to go in and sit on the same table as the chief executives and discuss what was really going on and give them a full view of what was happening. And I was, like, say, a rep for a few years, and then a job became available in Wales in the southwest, which is the region I'm in, and I became the regional officer. And from there, I've covered the care sector, like I said, for the last 20 years. In Wales, I'm part of the Social Care Fair Work Forum, which has been recently set up by Welsh Government, that represents the interests and is looking at sectoral collective bargaining for social care in Wales. That's an important step for us because it gives us, as well as Unison and Unite unions, a voice to sit around the table with the employers, with the local authorities, with the government, to actually speak and advise on what is happening, again, what's happening in the workplace, but to actually push for collective bargaining to move towards increasing pay, terms and conditions, and improving the life of the workforce. So that's an important step for us. And we continue to do that across all the devolved nations in England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. The unions are working not just with the employers, but with the governments as well, and trying to increase and improve social care and improve it for everybody. Because if you improve social care for the workforce, you naturally improve social care for the people that use it.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting to hear your journey from actually a really local level, supporting the workforce, and then going on and doing it in your area. And do you find that your sort of local knowledge has helped you represent people like at board level?
Absolutely. I think without having the lived experience of social care, it is very difficult to understand what the workforce are going through, have gone through. You know, the low pay, no sick pay, all that was very relevant to me as a care worker. And listening to my members, I know what they've been through. I can understand that from a personal point of view, and it's also quite fun actually when employers don't realise my background and sometimes try and tell me what really happens in social care that I clearly don't understand as a union officer.
Try to school you.
Yeah, and I find that quite amusing, so I enjoy that sometimes. But yeah, it is important that we as unions understand exactly what our members are going through, and that really does help us then to provide a good service.
And talk to me a bit about GMB and what's the size and who does it sort of traditionally represent?
So GMB is a general union. So it doesn't matter where you work, whether it's in social care, whether it's in utilities, NHS. We cover members across the board. We've got over 600,000 members, and they cover, we cover from the public sector, public services, private companies. Our members work in full-time, part-time roles, and the GMB's, our job is basic. It's to get the best deal for our members, and making sure that whatever we fight for is always on behalf of our members, and that we are making sure that we, as I say, improve their lives, try and improve pay, terms, conditions, protect people in work, negotiate and organise with employers, to make sure that actually our members get a better work-life balance and they're treated fairly in work. That's the most important thing for our union, is that we are working for our members and building and organising for our members within their workplaces, so that they get a safe place to work and a place that actually they want to be a part of. It was mentioned earlier, the strike word. Actually, a union only goes on strike if the members actually ballot and want the union to go on strike. We don't take members out on strike unless the members ask us to. But our members, will go through a whole process and will be working with the unions, and that's exactly what we want to do. We always want to make sure our members have a say on everything that the GMB wants to do, and to support them in the challenges and the fights that they have.
Great, thank you for that. That's really helpful introduction. So we'll come back to you in a moment, Kelly. So over to you, Matt. If you could also just explain your journey into being a union rep, and then maybe talk a bit more about Unite as a union and its background and who it traditionally represents.
Yeah, hi Sophie. My name's Matt Tipper. I'm a regional coordinating officer in the Southwest for Unite. My journey really started when I left school. I went to work in a service station, Micklewood on the M5, I think it is. Yeah, M5. And it became apparent to me that when you start work, you have an expectation that people are going to look after you and support you straight away. But the truth of the matter is there was no trade unions there, and everybody was bullied. You were shouted at, you were bawled at by managers. And it didn't take me long to realise I needed to get out of there, and went to work at a place called Listers in Dursley, where they had trade unions. Quite quickly, I realised that collective approach to dealing with workplace issues, where you had somebody there who's prepared to speak up for you as an individual, was incredibly important. That then obviously became my goal to become a trade union representative. I was elected by the employees at a different workplace called Millikens in Cam to become a shop steward. And from that day on, it's been the best decision I ever made. We represented workers in the workplace. At the time when I became a shop steward, I believe we had about 40% membership in that workplace. By the time I became a union officer 10 years later, we had 95% membership in that workplace. And that all came from the fact that we just constantly kept fighting for our members in that workplace to get better terms and conditions, to look at equal pay claims that we needed to run, because there was historic stuff that had gone on for many, many years that hadn't been challenged. So those are the sort of key issues that you find, and also pay. We took people with us. We took the workers in that workplace along with us on a ride to make sure that we got better terms and conditions. Like I said, that was 17 years ago. I've been a trade union officer now for 17 years. I don't have a background in social care, so Kelly is going to have a lot more knowledge on the actual working basis of social care itself. But in the past 2 years, just prior to the pandemic striking, in Unite in the Southwest, we decided we would have a look at social care as a sector to try and organise. And part of my role in Unite is to try and organise workers into getting collective bargaining structures into their workplaces. So that is a brief trip through my journey into the trade union movement.
Great, thanks for that, Matt. And in terms of Unite as a union, who does it normally or traditionally represent? Obviously, you said that social care is quite new. I think generally in unions, They've only just started to consider social care as an area to really look for new members. Tell us a little bit about Unite and who they are, who they represent, maybe some of the successes that they've had for other industries.
Yeah. Sorry, you keep breaking up on my laptop every now and again, but so apologies if I cut in. But yeah, we're largely very, very similar to GMB. You know, we're structured. We're a general union, exactly the same. So we organise across a wide array of sectors, and we have always looked to organise workers in the health and social care sector. I think one of the major problems that we've had in the past few decades is how splintered it's become. If it was in local authority or under NHS, etc., you had the collective bargaining structures above. So it's very, very easy then to get access to people, and most people working for the same employer. Well, what's tended to happen is over the last few decades is that there's been outsourcing, and it's very, very difficult to organise people when they suddenly disappear from under those structures. But it's absolutely clear that there's a group of workers that need to be represented.
Absolutely, and it is good. Better late than never for all the unions to get involved with social care and to start thinking how to support the sector. Now, I've got a question in already, and just to encourage anyone else who's got questions, because this is very much your platform. You've got 2 union reps here. If you want to ask anything at all, then do so in the chat, or if you're on Twitter, then hashtag Care Uncut. There we go, right on cue. And I will check Twitter because viewers on Twitter don't come up for me here on this platform, so I will check it and see if there's any questions coming up. So Sarah Booth, is asking, what has been your most significant achievements in social care that resulted in such a positive outcome? Is there anything, Kelly, that you can think of, or even that you're planning to do, if there isn't anything historically?
I think the most significant achievements for me has been actually during the last 18 months during the COVID outbreak, was the change that the unions made through the COVID outbreak, through, for the improvements of PPE for social care, the changes to the masks and insurance, that the employers were improving masks, and actually that the staff got the PPE. Because you remember in the early days of COVID, there was a serious lack of PPE within the care sector. It was woefully lacking in what they should have been receiving. And, in some cases, I'd seen care workers were literally begging on Facebook to be provided with, masks, and they were using cloth masks, pieces of T-shirts cut up. And it was absolutely disgraceful the way that, the care sector was being left behind during the pandemic. And GMB, along with other unions, campaigned to governments across the 4 nations to improve the PP, which we did do, and we improved the conditions that they were using, the materials that they were using, and made sure that the FFP2 masks and type 2 masks, etc. But I think one of the proudest moments I had was when actually we challenged and pushed governments to bring in the Infection Control Fund, and in Wales specifically, where I'm from, that we enable staff to have full sick pay during isolation. And I think that for the social care workforce, the sick pay, full sick pay for them, to enable them to isolate safely and to have full sick pay without having to go and borrow money. That a number of my members and friends were saying that they, if they had to isolate, they couldn't afford to isolate. They were literally working hand to mouth. So for me, that was one of our greatest achievements as unions. That we campaigned and won some of these campaigns for our members during some of the darkest times. So I think that is really important. And I think, just to sort of clarify, GMB has been involved in social care for the past 20 years. We've been recognised within companies of Four Seasons, HC1, Brighter Kind, Hunter Coombe Group. These are companies that we got recognition agreement with. But Matt is right that the sector has been fragmented since the fall of Southern Cross. The sector is really fragmented and broken up into much smaller and different companies. And that for trade unions is very difficult then to organise, because your membership splits up and moves to new providers. So you've got to start organising again. So it's one of them challenges that all unions, and there's a huge workforce there, all unions will have to move and build and campaign on. So something that we'll continue to do.
So I'm going to start with the positive first, and then I want to go into the challenges afterwards. In terms of what you can do, I feel like there's two sets of people. There's the employees that you can support for employment disputes and can accompany to tribunals or appeals or whatever. And then maybe on a more sort of sector basis, some of the campaigning you were talking about, Kelly. Maybe start off with, if I'm a care worker and I'm thinking I'm not part of a union, why would I join a union? Maybe I'll start off with you, Matt.
Yeah. Well, quite clearly, we said earlier on about the fragmented nature of social care. You've got a situation there whereby lots of workers in that sector are not protected by collective bargaining. So when you're talking about individual workers, obviously the necessity to be in a union is there to provide you with that protection in the first instance. But I always look at things in this basis and say to people, try and think on the collective lines of things as well. So if you're in a workplace and your employer is treating you badly, they're attacking your terms and conditions, and not paying you what you think you're entitled to, the likelihood is they're doing it to somebody else as well. So I always say to people, you've always got to keep that mindset in place to think about your colleagues as well. Because as trade unions, we can take legal cases on for people. We can come in and we can win potential grievances and defend people in disciplinaries. But the truth of the matter is it doesn't change employers necessarily. They don't necessarily change their attitudes towards workers on that basis. You need that collectivism really in place to be able to do that. So I think that's one of the key things that I always try and stress to people, is to think about your colleague workers, your co-workers as well.
Great, that's really helpful. And for you, Kelly, is there anything you wanted to add on sort of like as an employee, why would I join a union?
Yeah, I think Matt has already sort of covered the basics, and it's right, isn't it? It's about there's two reasons why you join a union as an individual. It's number one, to protect yourself in the workplace, to make sure that you have somebody that's going to support you when things go, and unfortunately in care, when things go wrong, they can go very wrong. So it's making sure that you've got somebody there to speak for you and to represent and defend you during, disciplinaries, grievances, or accusations being made against you. So that's a big priority. But the collective reason that you join the union is because and Bernie Sanders said it, didn't he? If there's one person complaining about the working conditions in work, the employer says, well, I'm not going to do nothing about it. It's only you complaining. If there's 100 employees in a workplace with 100 employees and everyone is complaining and raising their concerns, then the employer is going to listen. Because if they don't, what's the alternative? People are going to either get upset, they're either going to leave, or they're going to challenge. And that's where a union supports the collective and supports that narrative that you are better off in a union because you have a better, more collective voice. It makes your voice shout that little bit louder. And that's what we want to do for our members.
Great, really clear messages from you both. Thank you. And the other side of it is, of course, as an employer. So employers might, and this is where I'm really interested in finding out how unions can help, because traditionally people might think as an employer, well, the only interaction I've had with a union is a really difficult conversation. Well, I've been on the phone with unions and we've gone back and forth and I'm stressed at work and I'm, stressed in many different things. And then I have a union member on the phone. I think, oh my goodness, to say I'm not here, and all of those experiences. But is there, especially in the time when we're trying to get a new vision for social care, new support for social care, is there more that unions can do in terms of helping the sector which could benefit employers? Because obviously if you're not paid by a local authority to provide the right terms and conditions that you want to give to employees, then that's really difficult if you're an employer on your own. but can unions provide that extra pressure to the authorities outside of providers to get those better terms and conditions for people working on the ground in social care? Or am I just being overly optimistic? I don't know. What do you think, Kelly?
And you're not being optimistic at all. I think this is something that actually the unions do, and we do well. And we constantly are in negotiations with local authorities, with governments, and say one of the things that the unions do is actually say to the governments, you need to fund social care. You need to fund it properly to ensure that the providers can pay good terms and conditions. And we expect, if the funding is in place, that it goes to the workforce. So we will always, if the funding is not being, if social care is not being funded correctly, I believe that's our responsibility as unions to challenge the local authorities, challenge the governments to make sure that the funding is appropriate. But what we don't want to do is see any funding that goes into social care then go into profits for social care companies, because that is then wrong, and that's what we'd be opposed to. So I've always said to providers, look, if you're not being funded properly, then show us the stats, let us know, and we can challenge that challenge within the authorities and the governments. But if you're being given that funding and it's going to some offshore account, then obviously we're going to challenge you, and we're going to make sure that our members get that funding, because that's our responsibility. But I have often sat round tables, and again, I do this in Wales as well as the South Wales, and as well as in England. We challenge as unions all governments to support and fund social care, because if we don't, you can forget a crisis. It's going to collapse. It's very important that we do this.
And I suppose the other question is, if I am a provider, how should I interact with unions? Should I, because I feel that many providers try and shy away with any involvement, sort of, bit of an Amazon approach, not really encouraging, maybe not as much as that, but like not encouraging people to necessarily have join unions. So what's the process? For example, would you have somebody, a representative within an organization who then would be the liaison with a union for the rest of the workforce? How would I, as a provider, engage with a union? Matt, maybe I'll come to you first on this one.
Yeah, I guess the key thing there first is the engagement with the trade union to set up some form of recognition. That's the mechanism by which we tend to engage with employers. So on that basis, it'd be a case of the trade union sitting down with the employer and agreeing the terms of reference of how you're going to engage anyway. So those would be the key discussions that you have.
And just interject there. What typically does that look like? How do employers set out those terms, or is it really different for every type of employer in different industries?
Absolutely. So there's general principles that we would have, and I'm sure Kelly in the GMB is exactly the same, and that we have standard documents that we tend to work from, and we'll engage with the employer and have those conversations anyway to see what they look like. But that's just your Bible about how you interact with each other. It's what you do in business anywhere. So it makes perfect sense. But the key thing then is, once that's in situ, yes, you would elect representatives from the workforce, and they would then be the spokespeople for the workers in that workplace and engage direct with the employers. And people like myself and Kelly would be the supportive people outside, giving them the advice that they need to be able to interact with their employer. And many employers as well also then look to engage in employer associations to get the same sort of advice back the other way. But if you've got a good working relationship with the trade union as an employer, it takes all that away anyway. If you engage with us, we've got the knowledge of dealing with these things on a day-to-day basis. So if you do engage, then we can help you set up the right policies, procedures. We know what ACAS says. We know what legislation says, so we can help you establish all that anyway. So that's the hard sell that trade unions do to employers when we're talking. But the trade-off is we expect our employees to be better paid, to have better terms and conditions than people who are not trade union organised. So.
Yes, really interesting. That's really helpful. Kelly, did you want to add to any of that?
Yeah, I just again agree with Matt, and I think it's I always find it quite amusing when companies and employers turn and say to unions, "Oh, well, I don't want a union because it's just going to destroy the company. It's going to break the company down. It'll ruin us." What the question I ask them is, why would we? Why would we want to damage any company that we recognise we deal with? Because I would, like as I said earlier, my role as an officer is to protect my members in work, to keep them in work, but to keep them in good work and have good terms and conditions. So any employer that says that unions are going to destroy them, I think have either had a bad deal or actually probably not treated their members fairly, their workforce fairly enough, that a union's gone in and said, actually, you can't do this. And the workforce, because we are the voice of the workforce, we don't come in with our own agenda. We are the voice piece for our members, and that's what I want to do. And whenever I have a company that's quite worried, on a manager, especially in residential care, nursing care. If I have a manager that's worried about a union officer coming in, I'll often say to the union officer, go and try and have a cup of coffee with them. Go and understand why they're fearful of the union. Go and find out what's wrong and try and turn that relationship round. Try and build a relationship of trust that actually we can go in there and have a conversation with the manager and find out what's going wrong within the home, or be able to speak about what our members' concerns are and fix it that way. Sometimes it's better to break down it's always better to break down that barrier than build a 6-foot wall that we can't get past without challenging all the time. And for me, and I think that comes back to the care side of me, I'll always go in and try and find that approach first and try and work it. But I will always do for the best for my members. And that's absolutely what we want to do.
Yeah, brilliant. Really positive comments. Oh, yes. You can come back in, Matt. Yeah, go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in regards to that collective bargaining piece as well, I think the TUC announced in September 2020 about a new deal for social care as well, that looked at providing a number of funding that actually is fit for purpose. For the last 10 years, I believe it's been underfunded to such a degree that, was it £600 million being spent on it, less than there was in 2010. So that there's a need for lobbying of government as well, and that's what we can do as unions. The TUC has drawn up this document. I know Unite are fully supportive of it, and what that can then bring is, if you've got that in situ, it brings in that collective bargaining piece nationally as well. And if we have national sectoral bargaining with trade unions working with employers to go to government and get the funding that's required, then that makes perfect sense. So I just wanted to add that in as well.
Really appreciate it. That's brilliant. You're going to have to roll back a bit for me because I'm not au fait with unions and how it all works. So how does the relationship with your unions work with the TUC? Is that the overall body?
Yeah.
That you
essentially the TUC. Yeah, the TUC are we all have to affiliate. Well, most of the unions affiliate to the TUC. And they generate general policies and procedures that they then, obviously, the other unions then adopt and look to pursue with government.
Okay, really helpful. Thanks for that, Matt. I want to talk a little bit about one of the things that's happened. I had a live stream with Nadia Whitmore, and she talked about this strike action. So this is one of the things, obviously, that can happen. And this was one done by the UVW union, so a different union. And this was care workers, and they were looking at a £12 per hour pay, so better paying conditions generally. I will play her clip, and then we might talk a little bit in more detail about some of the detailed things that on a national stage that you might want to canvass for or lobby for government for social care. So let's hear from Nadia.
Yeah, so this is just incredible. I can't stress how historic it really is the first time that anything like this has happened. And, you know, it's a gut-wrenching decision for care workers to make, to go on strike, because all you care about as a care worker is looking after and doing your best by your residents, and you build very personal relationships with them. So I can't imagine how difficult it must have been for these workers to say, actually, we're being treated terribly, we're being exploited, and we deserve better than this. And this is our only option. So they've been on strike for full sick pay and for £12 an hour living wage. And what this means, if they're successful, but even the very act of them going on strike and holding the line, I think this could be the catalyst for a sea change across the sector. And if they win, that's not just going to be a win for them individually in their care homes, but it's going to be a win for care workers across the country, and also other gig economy workers and 0 hours contract workers. So yeah, I'm completely inspired by them. And
okay, so there we go. Obviously, we don't want everyone to go to. There's a lot more that the unions do than go on strike, but you know, obviously they were trying to encourage or canvass for certain things, specific things for social care. Is there anything specific? And then obviously the NHS we had last week was talking about the 3% pay rise, which they were trying to say wasn't enough for NHS workers. So is there anything within your individual unions that you would be specifically looking for social care going forward? Obviously, we've got a new Health and Social Care Secretary of State. What are you going to the Department of Health and Social Care or the government and saying this is specifically what we would advise for social care workers and our members? Kelly, can I come to you first?
Yeah, you can. GMB has set out 5 key priority areas that we want and that we will be campaigning on, and we continue to campaign on. Number 1 is pay justice. So we've set our minimum actually is £15 an hour for social care sector. We believe that is a fair rate of pay for the work that is carried out by the social care sector, and has been especially highlighted during the last 18 months how important sector the workforce are. So we've set a minimum of £15 an hour. We believe that we set a bargaining agenda that delivers pay justice for the members, including campaigning for funding social care sector to give workers at least the minimum of £15 to that, or to at least look at local government structures so that they're in comparison to the local authorities. So that is something that we think is very important, given that the exodus of social care workers from the sector now. We know how many people are leaving the sector. So if you want to recognise the workforce, you have to pay for them and recognise what they do. The second thing on our key asks is professional work, to recognise the professionals that are working within the social care sector, and to introduce a registration system in England that's similar to what we have in Wales and Scotland, Northern Ireland, and to enable national training standards, to enable genuine career progression and respect from the public, so that we're not just clapping when something goes wrong. Actually, we absolutely genuinely recognise the professionalisation of the workforce and the professionals that they really are. Third thing, and this is an important one that affects and our members often raise this as a concern, so it's a genuine ask, is that we want to look again at the safe staffing levels within the care sector, and especially the care homes, residential and nursing homes, that our members tell us are continually understaffed, that causes burnout for the workforce that are left to pick up the shortage of the staff. But we want to make sure that the levels are safe enough to ensure the quality of service for everybody in the service users and the residents that use and live in the care homes, that they're protected by good numbers and safe staffing levels. Again, as we said earlier, national sectoral collective bargaining that enables fair pay terms and conditions across social care, irrelevant of the employer. We believe that we should be in negotiations with the employers, with local authorities, with government, across the table, with the unions, negotiating on a proper pay structure, that absolutely has to be funded appropriately, so that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, and we're not taking it to one pot to put in another. We have to fund social care to make it fair for everybody. And the last thing on our agenda for that GMB will continue to campaign for is a national care service. So universal national care service, which is funded from the public purse through taxation, and that formalises universal pay structure with excellent terms and conditions. And that system is, focused on care and not profit. They are our 5 key asks in the GMB, and it's something that we will continue to campaign across the UK. But our fight for 15 continues for the workforce, and we have to make sure that we're trying to get that for our members.
Thank you. Really clear points there. A few questions about how that might affect other parts of the health and care sector. But before we come on to that, can I go to you, Matt? And has Unite got any similar or differing asks for social care?
Unite's fully supportive of the TUC new deal that they put out in September 2020. I mean, just to give you some basic, 70% of care workers earn less than £10 an hour in the UK. 50% of domiciliary care workers are on 0 hours contracts. So that's the reason why Unite's fully supportive of the TUC new deal. The funding settlement required to reverse the underfunding for the past decade and future funding levels to meet the rising demand of quality care. Like I said earlier on, £600 million being spent less than 2010. There's 120,000 existing vacancies within the sector that need to be filled. And there's an estimated 440,000 employees leaving the industry in the past 12 months. That's a 30% turnover rate. The fair pay and conditions to make social care an attractive career. I think the TUC one is saying a minimum of £10 per hour. I'm not aware of us having within Unite an actual figure that we say we should be pushing for, but I may be wrong. Like I said, I'm quite new to the sector itself. As previously stated, the National Social Care Forum, that would be the key. If we get the National Social Care Forum in situ, which could then negotiate money from the government into the sector, then obviously that then gives you the opportunity to negotiate better terms and conditions, and hopefully we can achieve the GMB's £15 per hour minimum. And the key thing which Kelly touched on earlier on is there's got to be a reduced private sector role in it. We can't have a situation that we're going to government and lobbying them to get more pay, more money funding into the sector, only for it to be hived off into bank accounts of shareholders and offshore. So, I mean, that would be Unite's position.
Really helpful, really good things from both of you, to be honest. I don't think many people would, or any people would really disagree with you. Do have a bit of a challenge from Sarah, again, who's asking if they pay care workers £15, then what will nurses get paid, then doctors, etc. Don't get me wrong, but I hope it happens. Care workers deserve a fair pay. So I suppose that's the practicalities of making £15 an hour a reality. Do you have any views on that challenge, Kelly?
Oh yeah, because it's interesting. I was having a conversation. I was having doing an interview last week about NHS pay, and I was asked about comparing against teachers and the police, because they police weren't given a pay rise, and why should the NHS get a pay rise when others don't? And actually, I agree that everybody, nurses should get paid more, doctors should get paid more, but why should carers be valued any less? And I think that's where we've ended up, in a situation where society actually says, you are just a carer. We're no longer just carers. We've never been just carers, and we should be valued as professionals. And many of my colleagues in the RCN will say to me, and have said to me, carers do nurses' roles. They carry out much of the nurses' roles that nurses are carrying out. They do it in care homes, not as much they have healthcare support workers in the hospitals. But why do we allow care workers to be valued any less? And I absolutely, and I know Sarah didn't mean to sort of say it like that, but I get where this comes from is as if we're saying, well, if we pay the low paid workers any more, the higher ones are going to be paid extra. Well, actually, we have been underfunding health and social care. Not we, the government has been underfunding health and social care for the last 10 years plus. And we've never committed, this government has never committed to health and social care. They've underfunded the NHS, they've underfunded social care. We're now in a situation where people are walking away from social care because they've had enough. And quite frankly, as a carer myself, I don't blame them. You know, there's a recent report come out today stating how many people are leaving social care and how difficult it is now to recruit into social care. Domiciliary healthcare support workers, the Home Care Healthcare Association have stated they're in real difficulty recruiting people. Well, it's not rocket science. If you pay people more money, they want to come and work for you. If you fund social care so you can pay people the right money, people work in social care rather than walking away from social care because of the responsibility and the difficulties and the challenges they face in the last 18 months and going to work in Tesco's and in, you know, hospitality in different areas where, you know, it is, again, a difficult job without the stress and the pressure of dealing with people with COVID and with all the PPE and restrictions they've had to deal with in the last 18 months. So I absolutely think that our care workers, as a minimum, should be entitled to £15 an hour, and I will continue to campaign for that until we get it.
It's like I always have this mention to people that nobody says to someone at the end of their career as a nurse, oh, so you were just a nurse. You retired as being just a nurse. You say, oh, wonderful, you were a nurse all your life. But I feel that when you're a care worker, people would say, oh, they were just a care worker and that's what they did all their life, as if that was some kind of failure. So, yeah.
Can I just say though, Sophie, I think that starts in education. That starts from school, from primary school to comprehensive. When you go from comprehensive, you're picking your subjects. I remember, because I didn't do great in school, I wasn't one that, you know, I wasn't academic in school at all. And I was told I could either go into care or hair. They were my options, hair or care, because I wasn't achieving. That's what I was pushed into. Now, I thrived working in the care sector and it's made me the person I am today. But that was my options because as far as the education system was concerned, I was fit and they were pushing me into that. And that's what I disagree with. We need to change the mindset of the education services to say, actually, these are professionals and the care sector is a professional route to go into. And somebody has commented there, how do we professionalize the role? I think what we need, well, in the devolved nations, we have social care Wales in Wales where they're expected to do CPDs, they're expected to, you know, commit to training, to education and professional standards to maintain their social care. I can't think of the name or the word of it, but they've registered within Social Care Wales, and therefore they're deemed as professionals because they have to do the CPD and the fitness practice, etc., etc. We need that in England. We need to be able to professionalise and say that to reach each standard, you have to qualify or commit to that kind of level of training. And that's what we want to see. And that's why one of our key asks is professionalising the workforce and identifying the levels in which people are trained to reach to get to that standard. You wouldn't let a nurse go into a hospital and look after somebody without knowing that they're competent, capable and qualified. So why do we treat carers any less?
Yeah, for me, for a while, the jury was out on the whole professionalisation of it because I feel a lot of people who go into care work, they don't really particularly want to be hitting the books all the time. But having heard from what you just said, and I feel like I am coming around to that idea of needing to professionalize it in that way. I think it works generally for everybody in the long run. I've got a question here on Twitter, and I will come to the gender issues as well. We're going to talk about the gender nature of care and of unions in general. So this whole idea of the perception of unions, because we've talked about coming together collectively, we're stronger. Obviously, you've got a disparate sector. It's not just care homes, it's home care, it's supported living, it's a whole different types of parts of the sector. And obviously, unions is one way to come together for the power and the strength to then to lobby government. But what someone's Twitter is asking, how do you encourage both organisations and workers to see the input of the unions as non-punitive, given so many services are fearful of receiving unfavourable judgments due to staff shortages, skills deficits and high staff turnover? So that's the perception of unions, just trying to see them as a lot more positive. And I know you have, this is whole part of it in a way. And I want people to see that all the things, the positive things that unions can do in different ways. But how are you reaching out to this workforce who traditionally are just not unionized? It's obviously very difficult. What are the difficulties you're finding? And have you got any thoughts of how to encourage people to join up to your unions in any way now or in the future? Matt, have you got any ideas on that? Let me unmute you. Bear with me a sec. Okay.
Yeah, as we previously stated, there's this fragmentation of the sector that's gone about, which has made it a whole lot more difficult to even have contact with groups of workers anyway. And obviously during the pandemic, it's been virtually impossible to meet with people anyway, because a lot of the care homes, etc., have all been locked down and people have been working from home, etc. So it's been one of those situations that's been very, very difficult to meet with workers, and it's difficult anyway outside of that structure because of the disparate nature of the work that people do as well. From my point of view, one of the things we did in the Southwest when we were looking to engage at the beginning of the pandemic, we wrote out to a lot of the care homes, to the managers, to see if there's anything that we could do in regards to the crisis around PPE, etc., to see if there was any engagement to come back from them, because a lot of the managers in workplaces are also members of our union. But I mean, we tried that and we didn't get a great response back from those care home managers in the Gloucestershire area of the Southwest. But it's one of those situations. You can write to people, you can try and get hold of people, and like I say, when you get contacts of members in the sector, you've just had that conversation with them about their colleagues and getting them to join. Otherwise, you're dealing with individual issues all the time, and that's one of the only ways really that you can get in there if you haven't got some form of collective bargaining in place already.
Okay, thank you for that, Matt. And, like I said, people before, if you are listening to this, if you think a colleague could benefit from this, then don't forget to share. Don't forget to like if you like anything that any of our speakers are saying. If you're watching back, it helps people, it helps with the algorithms, get people to the stream and get watching it and asking and thinking about how joining a union might change their ability to get better pay conditions, not only for themselves, but their colleagues and also the sector. So, Kelly, can I come to you on that question? A challenge, trying again to talk about how we can encourage more people to think about joining a union in social care, and any innovative ideas you can think of, or even encourage other people who are already part of a union to talk to their colleagues about it. Have you got anything to add to what Matt said?
Yeah, I think it's about being relevant to the workforce. I think that's the one thing that they want from the unions, actually, for the members for us to be relevant and speaking on behalf of the workforce and knowing what the issues are and the concerns are and what's being raised. But Matt's absolutely right. For the last 18 months, we haven't been able to even get near the work. When normally I would be going into my care homes, having a chat with the workers, discussing what the concerns are, raising issues, resolving problems and dealing with them, and building campaigns around what we know within the workforce. Now, for the last 18 months, and it feels like so much longer than 18 months, but for the last 18 months, we've been outside virtually and relying on things like webinars like this and live streams and social media, Facebook, Twitter, any social media we can use to actually reach the workforce. But again, as you said, it's, algorithms kind of can sometimes also restrict the union voice and how we get that message across. But we have been reliant on our members that are in the workplaces, speaking and talking to their colleagues. We've regularly been ringing up our members and having chats with them and going, how are you? Are you okay? We've been working with them to try and build the workplaces up from us being on the outside and using them inside to build up and let us know what the concerns are. But it has been an incredible challenge over the last 18 months, just keeping our members feeling that we are, well, not feeling, but knowing that we're there for them. And that's what's been really important for me. In the campaigns we've run, everything we've done over the last 18 months, we've sent out the details to our members going, this is what we're doing, this is what we're campaigning for, this is what we challenge government about today, PPE, sick pay, and we made sure that our members were kept up to date. The unfortunate thing is, our members get to know about this, but then it's difficult to recruit people when you haven't got their details. So you're reliant on, like I say, our members passing that information on, or the media getting to the right people to enable us to share their voice. So it is difficult, but fingers crossed, we're going to be starting able to be going back into the care homes now. We are seeing some lifting in some care homes and some workplaces. Domiciliary care, by the way, is a completely different egg altogether, because in many cases, they won't have a workplace to go to. They won't have, there'll quite often be a manager on a laptop sending out the details of the calls, etc., where they've got to go and what meetings they have. So it's them that we rely on, the phone calls, ringing the members, asking them what their issues are, and then building up from there. You start with one person, you can build up a collective, and that's the whole point.
There we go. Starting from one person, it's a start, isn't it? And talking about the people who work in social care. So a couple of, is it a month ago, I think, we had Jim Campbell from the World Health Organization. It is the year of the health and social care worker, according to the World Health Organization. Well, at least that's what they're sponsoring. So we were talking to him about care and social care and health. And also they have a report out, and it's entitled, I've mentioned it before on this live stream, delivered by women, led by men. And of course, this is looking at it on a global stage, so not just in the UK, but within their report, they picked out some general messages, key messages, and one of them was this one. In general, women deliver global health and men lead it. Progress on gender parity in leadership varies by country and sector, but generally men hold the majority of senior roles in health from global to community level. Global health is predominantly led by men. 69% of global health organizations are headed by men, and 80% of board chairs are men. Only 20% of global health organizations were found to have gender parity on their boards, and 25% had gender parity at senior management level. And the key point message I like here is health systems will be stronger when the women who deliver them have an equal say in the design of national health plans, policies, and systems. And I suppose what I wanted to discuss really is the gendered nature of care and health. Obviously we're talking mainly about social care here, but do you think that feeds into the reason why for some reason there is such a lack of union representation in social care, whether that people just haven't had a focus on social care because of its gendered nature? I know I might be just, talking nonsense, but I don't know whether there is a link. You've got all these statistics about social care, and of course you've got the gendered nature of it. So I'd like your opinion on that, and unions in general. I feel like they started from a point of having membership from organizations which were highly male focused. So is that a bit of a challenge as well, reaching out to a different type of membership? I wouldn't mind your general thoughts on that. Kelly, I can almost hear you thinking. Can you share your thoughts?
Yeah, I just tried to control my thoughts. That's what I was doing. Yeah, look, social care it has always been seen as a woman's job because it is care, okay? Because apparently only women care, or only women can care. That's always been this, the theory and the design that women will just do care work because it's a bit of pin money, it works on the families, all these things I've heard in the past, right? And it's all these things that absolutely drive me to despair. One of the reasons, I think, one of the challenges we have, and we've seen this within local authority structures when we went through job evaluation within local authorities, that care, cleaning and catering roles that were inherently female-dominated workplaces all got pay rises and went up and raised within local authorities. And once they did, then we see many local authorities then privatise them sections. So, you know, the cleaning contracts went out in local authorities, the caring contracts went out in local authorities, home care got privatised, because then all of a sudden the women's value got too high and then they privatised. And I've seen that across many authorities across the UK, which is, you know, it's really sad. But we, as a society, believe that social care is a female's role, and that's what needs to change. And the reason why I think many of the boards are run by men is because most private care companies and care sectors are actually, they may as well be the banks of care company, not the care company, because there's so much financial work going on there. You know, taxation, putting money into the private into profits and trying to work out how to put profit into offshore accounts. It is just inherently sexist, and that's the real problem with the social care sector. It is sexist. Even employment law, when, you know, the cases are lost, generally lost, I believe, because it's seen as a woman's job, and that's what we do. It just, you know, it's just completely unfair. But I believe that it is because of, it is seen as women's work, and that's what, again, but that goes back to schools. That goes back to being educated from a younger age to go, actually, a job is a job, whether you're male or female, and you should be, you know, able to do that. Why do we have pink clothes for girls? Why do we have blue clothes for boys? Why are girls' clothes shorter than boys' clothes when they're toddlers? Why are shorts for girls shorter than boys? All these things are about inherently being sexist towards females and pushing females into, I believe, lower paid jobs that, you know, that social care fits into. And that's why we don't look at, you know, people don't look at raising and professionalising the workforce, because it's just a woman's job.
Yeah,
we have
really,
to the value.
Really strong idea. So societal issues and perceptions of the work and of gender work in general, and also education. And I wonder whether there's something to campaign for, you know, joining a union as part of the unit that people learn at college in social care, to go hand in hand of understanding how union representation can support you within your job, and make sure that you get better representation and terms and conditions. There's a thought. Matt, being the only male on the panel, I wouldn't mind your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a comment that Kelly made earlier on about when she was at school and the careers advisor said care or hair, and it's that part and parcel of that mentality that's there right from the get-go, isn't it? Is that there tends to be this gender channeling into certain roles. And there was something you said, Sophie, as well earlier on around the history of trade unions. You're right; they did tend to come through predominantly male-dominated sectors and guilds, etc. So there is a historic balance there that says, okay, these are the areas that are trade unionized, but it doesn't stop us. There should be a barrier to us to organize in the sectors where women are the predominant sex in those sectors. It just, to my mind, is the area that we need to concentrate on, and we as trade unions will always work in those sectors to try and make sure that people are properly represented. I know within Unite we do weekends as well, where you have empowerment weekends, etc., to try and give women the skills of leadership, etc., as well. So there's things that we can do in trade unions, but you can do them, but if there's glass ceilings in place, it's never going to change. And I think that's where the lobbying and ensuring that any legal processes that are there to protect women are done. And that's something we do as trade unions as well. We make sure that we do equal pay claims and we take the cases of discrimination where we can. But there's still a sea change that needs to come in, even in 2021.
Crazy, isn't it? It blows my mind.
Yeah.
But Gareth has got a really good question here, and I think it's leading on to like just on a practical level. Obviously, if you've got issues with salary and pay, do you want to be shelling out extra money to join a union? So on a practical level, how much does it cost to join your unions? Are there different levels? And how does that sort of how does it work? How much would it cost somebody to join, get membership? Maybe start off with you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's the one thing I didn't swat up on before I came in today. But we've always said in the trade union movement that your membership normally costs the price of a cup of coffee these days, or a pint a week. So it's always pretty much kept that level. But we do within Unite as well have low paid workers rates and scales. But you can get all that on our website anyway. If you go and have a look, it's there. But yeah, I mean, and we brought that low pay rate in for these circumstances because we understood that there was the sectors, as we said earlier on, where predominantly it's low paid. So therefore, you can't build any organisation if people don't join the trade union. So those we've had that in place now for, I think it's about 5 years. So if you go and have a look on that, you can see that. And I'm pretty certain Kelly does that within the GMB as well. And I know Unison have a sliding scale. So all the unions do that. They provide for people on low pay.
I'm having a few problems with my internet connection, so I keep dipping in and out. But can I get the same from Kelly? And I'm just going to change my internet. 1 second. But you carry on, Kelly.
Yeah, okay. So for GMB, we've got 2 different rates that we normally use between. So if you work under 20 hours, then it's £1.93 a week. And if you work over 20 hours, it's £3.35 a week. And I think Unites are pretty similar to the rates that we have in GMB. So it's less than £2 if you're on part-time rate, or less than £4 if you're on full-time rate a week. And we recognise again that many of our members will say that actually they can't afford a union. What we will say is, can you afford not to be in a union? Because the active work that the unions do within the sector and the protection that they provide, actually it is much more beneficial to be in a union and pay that price. And I absolutely understand, and I know I've very much been in situations where I've had to make a decision: do I pay a bill or do I pay my union fees? I still remember feeling that. But for me, it was always, for my priority was that I was protected in work, because at any time I knew that I could potentially be at risk from allegations and concerns. So for me, I protected myself. But it's like I say, can you afford not to be in a union? I think that's a question people need to ask. And the professionals, your nurses, your doctors, they're always in a union because they want to protect themselves. And that's, we were talking earlier about, why don't people get paid? People, protect themselves. But in, teachers, when we talk about professionals, they'll always be in a union. And that's why. Protect themselves, protect each other.
Great, thank you both. I didn't catch all of that, but that's fine, because I can always watch it back. This is recorded, everyone. You can watch it on the same link. But another question I wanted to ask was, obviously you explained kind of how you've supported people in social care during the pandemic, but are there other, just generally in other sectors, what kind of things are you supporting people with? Somebody has mentioned about mental well-being and amongst people who are really struggling at the moment. Has that come up, and are the unions doing anything around that to support people? Kelly, yeah.
Yeah, GMB has got we've been working really hard with mental care and mental health, because absolutely it has been highlighted again throughout the pandemic about how difficult and challenging it has been, not just for social care workforce, but across all all workplaces. We've set up with an organisation called Breathe, and if GMB members want to look on our website, they will see the information that we've got on the support that's given for mental health. And actually, we can put our members onto courses that some people won't get through going to the doctors, or we have to wait many, many weeks. But if they're working in social care, we can offer support for mental health and well-being. We've also got courses running and a lot of help on mental health and well-being for our members. So, and that is something actually we can work with when we talk about, do we work with providers on? That's absolutely something we can do to work with, to support providers in how they support their workers and their workforce. So this is about, again, the collective approach for the benefit of everybody. I spent the last 18 months, many days, literally talking to men and women who had, over the COVID pandemic, had to see and hear and be part of things that I don't know how they're going to get over in the next 10 or 20 years. Listening to people crying because they'd had to lay out 3 people that night, and how were they going to get through that? How are they going to get over that? And that was the support that we give as officers, as reps. And I know many of my reps had to do the same thing with the workforce because of trying to just get them through that time. So we knew that it was vital that we set up mental health support, and that will continue going on, and we'll continue to build on that. And if any of our members want to look at the GMB website, they will see all the support and help they can get from GMB, which is free. Nobody has to pay for it. And again, that's part of our membership. Our members get that support, and they're able to access that individually.
Thanks for that, Kelly. Really important mental health support. I'm hearing at the moment just burnout, especially in our sector and across lots of different sectors. So yeah, same to you, Matt, and Unite. And are you doing anything like that in the space of mental well-being for your members?
I think we've had some stuff come through in the last few weeks, but unfortunately you've caught me just at a time when I'm coming back, so I've not read through a lot of the stuff that's been sent out in the last few weeks. But looking at the wider thing, and I don't have the same experience as Kelly within the care sector itself directly, but across all sectors, we as trade unions as well, we also look at doing mental health first aiders and getting reps to be appointed in those roles to support people in the workplace. But that's normally about going to the employer and looking to the employer to provide the support mechanisms that are required as well. But I will go on the website afterwards and see what we've got, and if I can share it with you, Sophie, then maybe I'll get it out on your Twitter feeds as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I think that's an important point, pushing also employers to see what they can do within their organization to support people with mental well-being, because obviously that's the contact that employees have every day in their working lives, and to have that through their employers is really important. And Gareth Timms has kindly mentioned that his local Unite reps have worked with staff and organisations to improve mental health and wellbeing support. And as an organisation, it's seen as a benefit to the organisation and the people we support. So very much advocating for not only the unions, but also organisations to get on board with this. And I think that's something that's just never going to go away. I, for one, definitely thought that we'd be out of COVID times in a year, and we're not. So who knows what the future holds? We need to just carry on with doing all these fantastic things we're talking about on this live stream, including supporting mental well-being. And oh yes, we've got a lovely link. I don't know, Tobias, you can put that in. I think you have done that from GMB. Great. So someone, Victoria, has mentioned on Twitter and want to come on sort of like cultures. So she's mentioned about intersectionality in her comment here. So that the social care sector workforce is highly gendered, up to 95% in dom care. If women experience intersectional inequality in life in general, what makes folks think this won't be mirrored in this particular sector? We need to challenge this culturally. So in terms of people of colour, for example, who are dealing with the gendered aspect, and of course we've heard a lot in the news and just lately about different challenges that people of colour face, Is there anything that your unions are doing in that space around supporting people who are suffering from racial discrimination within the workplace? Doesn't have to be specifically in social care, but obviously if you have any examples, that would be helpful. But what are your organizations doing generally in that space? Kelly, can I come to you first, please?
Yeah, so GMB is one of the things that we've always made sure that we do is that we represent the workforce that we are looking after. And we talk about being, originally GMB was a Boilermakers union, so very male-dominated workplace and workforce and unions. Wales and the Southwest now, as a region, represents, there's a 50-50 split in our members, male-female. And actually the officers that are employed and the representatives, the officers within GMB Wales and Southwest, again, are split 50-50. So we try to make sure that our representation is representative of the workforce that we represent, and that has always been an important task for us in the journey that we've gone on. We've got our faults, we've got our problems, and we'll continue to sort of deal with them. But actually, we've challenged and looked at very different things and how we deal with the gender-specific issues within GMB has been worked on. With regards to people of colour and the workforce, again, we make sure that we reflected and represented our members as best we can. But what we need to do is recognise that in some areas we are not doing enough and we should be doing more. We set out consultations with our members to find out what is it that you want from the unions, and to make sure that we're recognising exactly what our members need us to do and how we need to represent them. And I think that's really important for a union to reflect on what our members want us to do and what our members need. But I think it's a real issue across the sector, not just in social care, but in health, that we've seen the big issues within, again, I keep talking about COVID as if it's the only thing we've had to talk about in the last 18 months, but it's probably the only thing I have spoke about. People of colour have had issues thrown at them regarding the vaccination. They've been put more at risk. COVID potentially put people at risk. And it's always been the challenges of how we make sure that they're represented and their voices are heard and their concerns are raised and that their voices are not ignored. And that's something that GMB has been pushing for. And, we, again, in Wales, worked on a all workplace risk assessment that took into consideration people of colour and the higher risks that they were in, to make sure that actually they were protected in the workplace more. And again, that went into the NHS. We made sure that the risk assessments were carried out, and if you were of colour, that you were protected more. And that, it's about looking at everything and going, what do we need to do? What is relevant and why do we need to do it? But it is about getting the voices of the workforce to come forward and say, this is our concerns, this is what we are dealing with in the workplace. But again, COVID has highlighted so much more that we need to do.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing is the fact that you're amplifying those voices, that very much people who are dealing with discrimination in that way feel that because they are the lone person in their organization, that they feel really disempowered to come and speak up and get the protections that they are legally entitled to. And so being part of a union and the support that you're saying that you're giving, it just enables people to have that support that they might not have in the workplace, to feel that they've got somebody to go to if they are feeling very alone where they are, and that they have that strength behind them through a union. And obviously you said you're working towards better representation with your organization, which is great. It's good to hear that, but it's also good to hear that you're kind of recognizing those issues, and especially the higher risks of people who are dying at a higher rate of getting COVID, people of colour, and obviously being on the front line in health and care. So yeah, really crucial stuff. Thank you for that, Kelly. And Matt, did you want to add anything more to that from Unite's perspective?
Yeah, I'd just say there's an eternal job of work that we need to do in regards to particularly the race side of things. I just look at our membership and where our reps are, and you look at the demographics, and they don't marry up. And we still aware of that in the trade union movement, that we're not as representative as we should be. of people of colour. So it's something we need to keep doing. Within Unite, we did set up a community section, and one of the key things is demonstrating to groups of people that by taking some form of collective action, you can build strength. And there was a group of Somalian women in Bristol who had the key swimming times removed because they had to swim alone. And we supported them, Unite, even though it wasn't a workplace issue. We still supported those people to demonstrate collectivism. And I think that is one of the key things. We need to make sure that we continue to engage with people and support wherever they possibly can, so we can build those structures. But yeah, I think I've got nothing else really to add to what Kelly said. I think she summed it up perfectly.
No, but that's really interesting, Matt, because you're talking about not only are you supporting people within the workplace, but of course, if you are able to support people better in the workplace, then as a society, you're also generally giving a different profile to how those people, how those individuals are valued. And I think that is actually goes a long way. We talk about perception, we talk about how the sector is seen and how women are seen within the sector, and that was a really powerful example actually of something quite local which would have meant a lot to them, and something that other people might not have experienced but that you were able to support them with. So it is a good example of just showing that there's quite a lot of scope of being part of a union that people can benefit from. It's just a case of taking the step, trying it out and seeing if it works. And presumably, do you have like webinars for members? What other things apart from the usual sort of representation that we've talked about already, that, and obviously we've talked about mental health support? Is there anything else before we sort of close down that you can say that your unions support people with that might be interesting for them to know about? Can I come to you first, Kelly?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, so each so GMB is made up of 9 regions, and each of the regions across the UK will have their own groups. So we have and they're all self-organized. So when we say self-organized, it'll be run by a officer, but the workforce, so all the reps and the people who are appointed into the group, they will organize it. So we'll just be, taking the notes, etc. But it'll be a self-organized group by members. And we do these for equality, for race, what else do we do? Youth members. So all the equality strands are covered, and we have self-organized groups, monthly, weekly meetings, etc. Whatever the groups want to do. Members are able to, as I said, access our GMB website. We do regular webinars, and again, these are dependent on the regions you're in. So if you look on your GMB regional webpage, it'll tell you what webinars are coming up, what Facebook Lives are coming up. But we often do these organised meetings just to tell people what we've been doing, what we're doing, what pride events we may be putting together, and how people can get involved. So what I would say, if anybody is interested in joining a union, whatever union, whether it's Unite, GMB or Unison, or if you're not sure which one to go on to the TUC website. That'll give information on what union is relevant for you. But most of the unions will have all these different organisations and organised groups within them that are very relevant to you and are very relevant to what you need to be becoming active in. But any union is only as active as their members. So if you want to know what the union's doing, get involved, get your voice heard, and become part of it and become part of the movement. Because without our members, the unions are nothing. It is you, our members, that actually create the differences. And if a union's not doing what you want, well, raise your voice a little bit louder and start making the change, because that's what we really want to do. We will focus on what our members want us to focus on. And absolutely, whoever you are, wherever you are, let your voices be heard and come and join a union and be part of the union family, because that's what really we want to do. We want to make a difference for social care. We want to improve the lives of our members. To do that, we need more people joining.
Really helpful, really good messaging. I really appreciate that. And it is the idea of, we talk about co-production. It really feels like you are talking about your members a lot. It's what you want, it's what you need. We're there for you on your behalf. And that's really refreshing, I think, especially for people working in social care to hear. So brilliant. Thank you so much, Kelly. And then anything to add from Unite's point of view? Any other things that Unite is involved with that can people might find interesting to know about, Matt?
Yeah, very, very similar to the GMB. We have lots of different webinars and stuff going on all across the country. So you can get details of those from the Unite website. We also have branch structures in place within a trade union. So therefore, if you're part and parcel of the care sector, there's every possibility that you'll be in a branch with other care workers. So it'll be interesting for people to find out where the branch meeting is taking place, so they can get involved in that. We also, within the southwest of Unite, put out a quarterly newsletter, which has plenty of links to things that are going on within the union, so people can get an idea of what we're doing. It also celebrates some of the industrial wins that Unite has had in that quarter as well, so identifying where we've done well for members. But just to really reiterate what Kelly said, we are about the trade union members. You come to us, you tell us what you want us to do, and we'll do everything we possibly can to support you in doing that. So yeah, please engage in a trade union, join one. That's my last really comment. Join a union if you're not in one.
Great. It's a great last comment. I really appreciate that. That was brilliant. And I think, you know, what I found interesting from both of you as well is just a lot of people feel that they're on their own within, especially in home care. You don't maybe feel part of a wider group. And of course, you're in both of your unions, you're doing things that help bring people together. So that's another reason why people might want to think about joining, because you obviously coming together collectively, even if it's just for your own sort of health and well-being. So really, really appreciate that. Okay, so I think we're pretty much coming to the end now. That hour and a half went really, really quickly, and I learned loads about unions. So you were both very engaging, and I really, really appreciate you coming on. So take care, both of you, and everybody. We've got lots of information about our guests and their organisations. So check them out, find out information, get them on Twitter or whichever social that you're involved with, and thank you so much both for spending your evening with us. Take care. I've got them both on mute, which is a bit cruel, but we'll leave it there. So last thing really to say to everyone is make sure that you do subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook, because we are hoping to do a few more live streams. One specifically on gender. I know we did touch on it quite a bit, but we're going to get a bit all academic about that. We might get some people who are looking at gender studies to talk about some of the history around women's work, and why maybe we are where we are with this at the moment in 2021, as we discussed. So we are in the process of organising that. So the best thing you can do is just to subscribe, click the bell if you're on YouTube, and then you'll get a notification of when we're about to go live with that. And of course, if you want to watch back any of our videos, then please do that on any Facebook or however you're watching us. And if you want more people to engage with this, then share hashtag Care Uncut. And of course, you can like as well. So all those things that you normally do on YouTube and Facebook, you know what to do. But for this evening, just to say thank you to our guests, their organisations, and thank you all for engaging with our material. And we very much hope to see you again on here soon. Take care, everybody.